Suppose we can get started. Welcome to the public information meeting for the Sunderland Bridge projects on US 7. Just real quick, if we could save our questions to the end of the presentation, we'll have folks come up to the microphone, introduce themselves, and so we can hear everybody's comments and concerns and answer questions and follow up from there if needed. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gary LaRoche. I'm the VTrans project manager. Here with me today I have WSP design team, Tim Higginson, and also Elaine Ezerins with WSP. She's our public information consultant. All right, if you want to.
Yeah.
Great. So the bridge project, Bridge 19-7 and Bridge 19-5 are located approximately half a mile and a mile south of the Exit 3 interchange of US 7 and Vermont Route 313, also known as Exit 3. So during tonight's meeting, just going over the agenda. I'll run through the VTrans project development process, go over the project schedule, talk about public involvement, do a public project overview including existing conditions, alternatives considered, talk about the proposed design of the project, and then get into some of the maintenance of traffic items, and then provide a summary, and then get into questions and answers. All right. So the VTrans project development process. So last year we scoped the project, and initially the project was funded, and then during the scoping study design portion of the project, we completed that study. We had a regional concerns meeting in the town of Sunderland last September. Since that time, the project has been defined to bridge replacement, while I'll let our design team get into that further, but the bridge project is currently in process of design. We're currently developing preliminary plans. After we develop our preliminary plans, we'll then proceed to final plan development, and concurrently we'll quantify areas of impact so we can procure our environmental permits. And after each design phase, we'll offer additional public involvement presentations to provide updates on how things are progressing. And then develop the final plan specifications and estimate, and acquire any right-of-way if the project needs it. Then we'll move into advertising and contract award, and then get into all the field work and construction. So I'll go over the project schedule. So we're looking at completing preliminary plans in November of -- our final plans were specs and estimate we're estimating to be August 25. We are not anticipating any right-of-way or utility relocation for this project. We're going to commence environmental permitting in April 25 through October, advertise the project in December, and then move to contract award just after the new year in January. And then we're looking at a construction window of April to October 26. So now I'll turn it over to Elaine Ezerins. She'll talk about the public outreach, and then Tim Higginson, he'll get into the design.
Just gonna make sure I can hear you fine, but I don't know the microphone. Can you hear me any better? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Perfect. So as Gary mentioned, I'm the public information consultant for both projects, and this is through the design phase and the construction phase. So there will be a consistent point of contact for the public over the course of the projects. So some of the public outreach today is the regional concerns meeting on October 9th, 2023. And then of course today's meeting, which there was a number of public outreach strategies to promote the meeting and invite folks to attend tonight. That included direct mailers, email announcements to our project stakeholder list, which if you signed up in the back, you will be joining or maybe have already joined to receive those email project updates moving forward, as well as a media advisory to local media outlets. And then we will have a presentation coming up in fall of 2025 as well. So there will be continued opportunities for the public to provide feedback, comments, ask questions. My email address and phone number are here for you to reach out at any time. You don't have to wait until there's some new development with the project to ask those questions. So as I mentioned, there is a stakeholder list that will receive project announcements moving forward. And then once we're in active construction, those announcements become more frequent in terms of weekly construction updates that outline construction activities, work schedule, any traffic impacts, and it has our contact information as people have questions and concerns in real time. And then if there are specific traffic impacts that we really want people to pay attention to, we'll issue traffic alerts as well. And that really draws attention to anything important for folks to know as they're planning their commutes. We also conducted some outreach to municipal officials throughout the region, so Bennington north to Manchester, as well as businesses in the area that could be impacted by this project. And we are maintaining a regional events calendar for the region that draws visitors from maybe out of state and also just regionally to their events. And so that's something I'm really interested in learning. If there's other events that maybe we didn't pick up on through whether it's the local newspaper or city pages, please feel free to reach out and let me know about those events and we'll add them to the calendar. And then I just want to point out my contact information up here, and that's also included in the printed version you have, as well as the project fact sheet. So there's two different ones for each culvert, and those contain some details about project milestones, why the projects are being proposed, and there are URLs in there to other documents that you might want to access and look over when you have more time. And then my contact information is also accessed there in case you need it in the future. And then here is Tim Higginson, who's going to talk about design.
Thank you, Elaine. Good evening. My name is Tim Higginson. As Gary mentioned, work with WSP, assisting VTrans with these structure replacements. We'll talk a little bit about existing conditions. Bridge 19.5 is about a mile to the south of exit 3. Route 7 is a principal arterial on the National Highway system. This current bridge is an 8-foot galvanized metal plate pipe arch, about 162 feet long, and it's buried by about 13 feet of fill. It was constructed in 1978. Next slide, please. The culvert is in poor condition. There's holes throughout the bottom of the culvert that range in size, and there's piping of water flowing underneath the culvert instead of through the culvert as it's supposed to. This culvert does meet hydraulic and bank full width, stream bank full width standards, but does not meet current aquatic organism passage standards. So per the VTrans bridge inspection report, the culvert is rated 4, poor, but the channel rating on the upstream downstream channel are satisfactory. I'm going to run through a few photos here. This is looking upstream. This is the upstream inlet. And this is moving to the downstream outlet. And you can see how this outlet is raised above the downstream channel. So there's an aquatic organism passage restriction in here. So that's something we'll be looking to correct. As I said, the culvert's in really poor shape. You can kind of see an example here. It's tough to see, but there's holes in every one of those corrugations, and it's proliferated through the whole bottom of the culvert. And then this is a photo looking downstream. In regards to natural resources that we have out here, there are wetlands at both culverts, but type Class 2 wetlands surrounding the project area. We're within the northern long-eared bat's habitat range and the endangered species. And this particular crossing has been identified as a top priority for wildlife passage, as well as having prime fish habitat. And that was all determined underneath our aquatic organism analysis. So this represents, I know this is tough to see, but this represents existing conditions of Bridge 19.5. Route 7 runs left to right on the page. The existing culvert runs bottom to top of the page. As you can see, it's about 162 feet long and is somewhat skewed in terms of its relation to the Route 7 roadway. So moving along to 19.7, a lot of similarities to 19.5. This is, as Gary mentioned, just south, almost a half mile, a little less than that, south of exit 3. The southbound merge lane, actually, right where you see that car, is right at the limit of this job. Again, on Route 7, principal arterial national highway system. This is a 7-foot corrugated galvanized metal plate pipe arch, a little shorter than 19.5 at 120 feet, and only about 10 feet of fill on top of it. Constructed in 1979. This culvert's in fair condition. There's still a lot of heavy rust, scaling, pitting, and holes throughout the bottom of this culvert over the whole length of the culvert. And this culvert does not meet the stream equilibrium standard for bank full width of the stream, which is 14 feet to support aquatic organism passage. Again, the VTrans bridge inspection report had this at fair, and then the upstream, downstream channels at very good. Run through a few more photos. This is the upstream channel. This is the inlet, concrete head wall and wing walls on the upstream side. This is our outlet, a little bit better from that elevation over the top of the stream channel compared to 19.5. And then a couple of representative photos of some of the perforations and holes in the culvert. This is in the bottom of the culvert where the rust line is. This one doesn't show you as much, but if you look at the next picture, you can really see how the culvert is really starting to degrade in that bottom half of the invert. You can see the soil coming through it. So, even though it's rated as fair, it's not that much different than the 19.5 culvert. So very similar to 19.5, we have wetlands on upstream, downstream of this. We're within the northern long-eared bat's habitat range. And again, this is also a top priority for wildlife and fish passage with regards to aquatic organism passage analysis. Again, this is a little tough to see, but Route 7 from the left to the right of the sheet, and our 19.7 structure, bottom to top. This is just to the north of the South Road underpass, represented on the left-hand side of the sheet. We do have guardrail in here, which is the difference to the 19.5 culvert. So our alternatives considered. We considered a no action alternative, which would, as you've seen from the photos, require additional maintenance within 10 years. We looked at culvert rehabilitation. That can look like many different ways, slip lines, invert repair, etc., with aquatic organism passage retrofits. That would get us about a 15 to 50 year design life, but it would still be substandard bank full width. Our selected alternative is the full bridge replacement with a precast concrete box culvert. This meets Agency of Natural Resources and hydraulic standards and would be a 14-foot span structure, 14-foot width. And that gets us about a 75-year design life. We did consider a full bridge replacement using a concrete buried frame, which is a 3-sided structure with an open bottom. That too meets all of the Agency of Natural Resources and hydraulic design standards. It has a similar design life, but it is more costly and takes longer to construct. So our proposed design for both 19.5 and 19.7 is to replace the existing metal plate arch culverts with new 4-sided precast concrete boxes. These will be a 14-foot span or width box. They'll meet the hydraulic standard and the bank full standards for the existing conditions. We'll be placing bed retention sills in the bottom of the pipe to allow for aquatic organisms to pass safely. The roadway on Route 7 will not be changed. It will still remain at 8-foot shoulders and 12-foot travel lanes. And we'll be incorporating head walls and wing walls on the upstream and downstream side of the culvert to minimize the length of the culvert and impact to the adjacent wetlands. And again, as I mentioned, 75-year design life is what we're anticipating. Again, I know some of these plans are kind of tough to see, but just from a generality standpoint, this is the preliminary layout of 19.5. It's being installed on a similar skew in the similar location of the existing culvert. You can see the culvert, and you can see our head wall and head walls on both sides, and then a little bit of channel work to tie into the existing channel. The overall footprint, the area you see in the outer lines, that's how much work we're doing on Route 7. It's really a small footprint on Route 7 to install the culvert. We're not making any other improvements to Route 7 other than installing the culvert. 19.7, very similar situation, except for we do have guardrail in this area. So we have reevaluated to make sure that the guardrail meets standards, extended it where needed on the north side. Very small footprint on Route 7, similar to 19.5. We have a little bit more channel work on the upstream and downstream to blend the wider structure into the existing channel upstream, downstream. Okay, so we'd like to discuss the maintenance of traffic considerations. We've considered temporary bridges, we've considered phase construction, and then we've considered off-site detour. At this time, the off-site detour is the selected alternative for the maintenance of traffic. I'll speak a little bit to what each of these options are like and to give a little bit of an understanding. So a temporary bridge would maintain 2 lanes of traffic and could be constructed either upstream or downstream of these culverts. It would require a significant amount of environmental impact, tree clearing, wetland impact, to create this offline new roadway. In the case of 19.7, a second temporary bridge would be needed to maintain the South Road underpass under Route 7. Temporary bridges and associated abutments are very costly. This is an example sheet just showing, can you go back one more page, showing the offline alternative and how far with temporary bridges you'd be looking to go offline of Route 7. So you can see here, this shows a temporary bridge over at South Road, and then, next page, Matthew, a temporary bridge over 19.7 stream, and then tying back into Route 7. Phase construction involves 2 phases, maintaining two-way traffic, 2 lanes of traffic, two-way traffic, by widening the roadway either to the east or to the west. Our traffic analysis has shown that there's significant delay on one-lane alternating, so we know we can't do one-lane alternating out here as a means to replace these structures. Sheeting, supportive excavation sheeting would be required between each of the phases, which is very costly, as well as the increased duration with the phase construction is a detriment to phase construction. This is a sample of what the layout looks like for a phase construction situation where we're shifting the lanes to one side or the other of the roadway, widening the roadway, temporary pavement, temporary guardrail to allow for construction of the culvert in a phased methodology. In this case, we would be shifting traffic to the east, and then we would be constructing the downstream section of the culvert. And then in the next phase, we would be shifting the traffic back over and then constructing the upstream side of the culvert. So the full road closure would involve an off-site detour via Vermont Route 7A and temporary signals and signage by the state. Alternating one-way traffic on Route 7 would be used prior to and after the full closure. So the off-site detour would involve a regional detour route from US 7 to Vermont Route 313 at exit 3, along Vermont Route 7A, back to exit 2, and then back to US 7. This adds a detour distance of about 3.3 miles. And we have done a construction stage traffic analysis on US 7 for the full closure with the detour, single lane closure, as well as one lane alternating traffic. We've also evaluated the Route 7A detour corridor for large truck turn movements, for any temporary widening that may be required at any intersections, and determined that there was no improvements that would be needed. One lane alternating. So we will talk a little bit more about duration here, but what we are looking to do is allow for one lane alternating on Route 7 to shorten up the detour time that we would be needing on 7A. So we would be using this alternating traffic on Route 7 before and after the closure to allow the contractor to do as much work as they could during that time period. We're going to be restricting this one-lane closure to Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. to avoid the weekend time and the peak traffic times in the morning and the afternoon. There will also be times where the contractor may shift 2 lanes of traffic up on Route 7 to accommodate paving, striping, and any of the final closeout work. We did evaluate, as I mentioned before, use of a one-lane alternating situation up on Route 7, and found that the delays and the peak times are significant, specifically over weekend times. So we're not looking to do one-lane alternating full-time up on Route 7. So our traffic analysis for the off-site detour, the existing intersections on Route 7A are stop controlled, and we're proposing to incorporate temporary signals to reduce delay and minimize safety concerns. During the full closure, the vehicles will be routed from Route 7 to 7A. This is about 200 vehicles in the AM peak hour, about 350 in the PM peak hour. With the temporary signal units, the intersections will operate at a similar level of service to the existing condition. These temporary signals would be installed at 7A and 313, 7A in Vermont 67, and 7A in the US 7 ramps at exit 2. They would only be employed during the closure. This is just showing some of our existing traffic volumes. I know this is tough to read, but just wanted to show that we went through the effort to analyze existing traffic volumes on Route 7 and 7A. And then on this next slide, the full closure volumes and how the traffic gets redistributed as part of our considerations for the approach on the 7A detour. Continued traffic analysis. Each of the intersections was analyzed for delay in queue length, identifying a level of service for each of the conditions of the existing, the bridge closure without any improvements, and then the bridge closure with temporary signals. Not telling you anything you don't know, weekday and weekend peak periods are the worst. The existing operation of the 3 intersections we mentioned operated at an A-B level of service and a C level of service at the 7A and US 7 ramps at exit 2. The temporary signal restores that to the let me back up. The bridge closure in the weekend peak time would push this to a level of service F for delay. Bringing in the temporary signals improves it back to a level of service A or B, and actually makes an improvement at the 7A and US 7 ramps to AB from existing condition of C. So superloads. So we recognize that the US 7 corridor is utilized for a lot of large south to north movements of large vehicles. What constitute a superload? 150,000 pounds or more, 100 feet or longer, 15 feet wide or wider, 14 feet high or higher. These loads require a permit and engineering review to determine what routes they will be using. During the bridge closure periods out here, we will be letting the DMV in Vermont as well as New York know of these closures to make sure that they program where these folks with these superloads will be using. We do recognize that there is the underpass on 313 is a low clearance of the railroad at about 14 feet. So we'll be, we'll have a campaign with the DMVs to make sure that those vehicles are routed correctly. Okay, so in summary, our proposed design for Bridge 19.5 and 19.7 are 14-foot wide by 8-foot high precast concrete box culverts. These support aquatic organism passage and have a 75-year design life. As I mentioned, we're going to use pre-post closure, 1-lane alternating, and non-peak periods, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 2, up on Route 7 to help the contractor get advanced work. I didn't mention it before, but the full closure with the offsite detour on Route 7A, we were proposing 7 days. We had previously proposed this at 14 days, but 7 days for each culvert because of the pre and post work that we're doing by allowing the 1-lane alternating on Route 7. We would be looking to install temporary signals during these 7-day closures at 7A and Vermont Route 313, also at 7A and Vermont Route 67, 7A and the US 7 ramps at exit 2. No additional improvements other than signage would be required at any of those detour intersections for any of the large vehicle turning movements. Construction schedule. These culverts are going to be constructed during low flow conditions, anticipated to be July to August 2026. We'll certainly work around community events and calendars to try and minimize any impact as possible. But in terms of when we anticipate, it would be in that July to August timeframe, but we will still be working with the contractor to define how that sequences with their means and methods in construction. So with that, again, thank you very much for being attentive and listening through this. We'd like to welcome any questions or comments that you may have. If you'd like to raise your hand and then come up to the mic and clearly state your name for the record and then your question, we'll be happy to work through with you, and we can bring up any of these other slides and discuss anything in more detail. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for coming to Shaftsbury. My question, my name is Richard Jorgensen. I'm a resident. Has it been considered, or does it need to be considered, that the alternate routes have any speed reduction from the currently posted speed limits?
Tim, do you want to field that as part of your traffic review?
Yeah, sure. So as part of our traffic analysis, we did not look into a needed speed reduction. So these numbers that you're reflected in here is with current speed. We could certainly, I would say it's something we could certainly look into with your comment as to whether it would be a viable alternative to reduce speed in some sections. So I don't, we could rerun the traffic analysis as well with that. I don't feel that that's likely going to affect the traffic analysis significantly, but it could be a strategy to mitigate driver speeding concerns.
And to add to your response, Tim, you know, during the construction activities, as things come up and as things are noticed, you know, those type of things or items can be addressed on the spot in the field, allowing for what we would do in some cases is allow additional budgeting for traffic enforcement.
That was my question, Gina James. I was wanting to know if you were going to include more patrols because of that. And also, if people are coming off trucks, if trucks are coming off exit 3 to go toward Bennington, how are we going to make sure they get back on exit 2 and not hit that bridge back down in Bennington? Because there's signs and people hit it all the time.
Understood. We will be carrying a number of uniform traffic officer hours within our engineer's estimate for specifically helping people get through the work zone and navigating. And also, being that this project is a national highway system, we do include a budget for traffic enforcement as well in the case of speeding. So the UTOs, general or uniform traffic officers, don't typically do the traffic enforcement or speeding in addition to being on site. Their function is to be there to assure that everybody is safe in getting through the work site, and then that those additional funds will be programmed for that enforcement part of it.
Can you be a little clearer about that? So you're not going to have, you're going to have it for like on and off? Or are you going to have it through our town too?
Excuse me, Kat, can you make a request? The camera's not going to pick it up for recording for your neighbors if you don't come to the microphone. I'm sorry.
While she makes her way up, I'll just state the other thing we could take a look at. I know not everybody pays attention to signage, but we'll look at ancillary and supplemental signage to help educate drivers coming down to reinforce moving over to exit 2.
So I wanted you to understand what you were saying clearly. So the money for the extra patrol, that's just going to be at the exit, or what about our town? Right here.
That would be for the detoured route.
So you're not going to have extra patrol for in town because we are on the 25, and it's very difficult for some people that aren't used to it to do the 25. And this is an active little community.
Understood. So when I said the detour route, that's from the 313 to 7A back to 7. So the end-to-end of the bridge would have the additional traffic patrol.
Okay, so I must have misunderstood you. I thought you said that it wasn't for speeding and stuff.
So the there's two different items for uniform traffic officers. There's one that's built into our estimate. One you would see on every typical projects. You usually have blue lights out there. Those are the folks that are there to assure that everybody's safe and essentially protecting the workers at the site. And then you have another item that's budgeted for, that's for specifically traffic enforcement and patrolling and, you know, state police.
So are you going to inform the town of how many hours you're going to allow the patrol in our town?
So the uniform traffic officers, the blue lights, those will be included in the project plans. So
I'm
you'll
more
be able to.
concerned about, I understand that
Yep.
you need them for the exits, that's fine,
Yep.
that's understandable. I'm more concerned about our town and our little section right here, because it is 25 miles an hour. I would like to know if you're going to inform the town of how many hours or budget money you have for patrol to patrol our town to be safe for our residents.
I currently have $45,000 in the project budget for that traffic.
So can you break that down for our town to let us know? Like, that doesn't really tell us how many hours, honestly.
So the.
And it doesn't well go over if you have longer time than 7 days for each one?
I can follow up with some nuanced information if that's helpful.
That would be very helpful, because, I mean, if it's 7 days and you divide that by two times, 45,000, that's 20-some odd thousand. I don't know what the overhead is.
I don't know specifically at this moment what the hourly rates are or what have you.
It'd be
So
nice so that
I'll
we can
certainly.
put it out on our webpage and our Facebook group, so that our residents know that they can see the safety that we have for our residents with all this added traffic. Because some of the trucks do go down here, and I'm not against trucks, I've been around trucks since I was 16 years old, but you get some guys and girls that travel pretty fast around here, and it's 25. And even though the school's going to be closed during this time, we still have playgrounds, and we still have parks, and we still have people that walk. We actually have people that have chickens.
Right.
So, you know, we do kind of would like to have some kind of numbers, because people will be calling the offices and asking us. And if we don't have information, then how are they supposed to know what it is? They're not going to call the state. The state really, my opinion, should inform all the towns of what they're going to supply for them and how many hours. And what, I know we had a hard time getting extra sheriff's hours because there's not enough patrol people. So what if that happens? What's the options for those things?
That's, you want to chime
No,
in?
I don't want to, I just want to after, sorry.
Okay. We'll certainly follow up on those questions and.
I'd appreciate that, because people call us constantly. And if we don't have the answers, we can't tell them. They're not going to call you. So it would help us if we had all that information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it. I mean, these are the comments that help build a successful project. I know that it's an inconvenience with regards to the detour, but we're at preliminary plans right now, working through those aspects, working through funding and budgeting. So we'll work through the metrics of that and be able to provide exactly how many hours that breaks down with regards to what the labor rates are for the uniform officers.
I just wanted to add, if you could find me after, just so I can capture your contact information, so that way we can talk after. That'd be great. Thank you.
Whichever one. You had your hand up first. You can go first.
I think you've answered all my questions. I just had one point of clarification. When I first got this and looked at the map, it looked like you were talking about the part at the end of South Road where there's sort of a trail that goes further in. There's sort of an underpass that also has, runoff coming through it, coming down the hill. And after I read that, kind of got all flooded out. But now, based on the pictures that I saw from what you're showing here, it looks like you're talking more about the culvert that's a little further in the woods. So I just wanted to be sure, is this affecting that other underpass where it's also sort of a concrete box.
Want to open that?
But it doesn't have a pipe, it's just a concrete box that also has a sort of washed out trail on it.
Yeah, if you want to go to the 19.7 proposed layout plan. Yeah, so you're correct. The South Road underpass is just to the south of this 19.7 large culvert crossing. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, that's where that concrete underpass goes. And then our culvert is several hundred feet to the north. So our work area will not, we're in the guardrail section for that underpass, but we're not engaged in that area of that
All right, so
underpass.
nothing's changing.
Nothing is changing with that
All right,
underpass.
thank you. That's just my question.
Yep. Thank you.
My name is Walt Klinger, and I do work with the Shaftsbury's Historical Society and the Bennington 250th Rev War Committee, and actually live down in Pownell, and I'm retired from career with Amtrak. And my comments may be a little off from where you are, but I'm hoping to carry them back to AOT folks north. Over the next 3 years, Vermont and the country is going to be celebrating our 250th birthday. And the Historical Society and Bennington 250 has lots and lots of events going on throughout the next 2.5 years up through the fall of 2027 after the battles of Saratoga and Bennington. There's going to be a lot happening up here on and off through that whole time. But I have 2 items. I hope I can get through this quick. More than a dozen years ago, Agency of Transportation in Vermont, in conjunction with New York Department of Transportation, spent over $1 million of state and federal funds to evaluate planned passenger rail transportation along the line from Bennington to Manchester and up to Rutland under the Track 2 study. As a commissioner at the Bennington County Regional Commission, I reviewed and commented on the study's final proposal for resuming passenger service here. At that time, I urged Vermont Agency of Transportation to include the state of Massachusetts in Track 2, which was declined. Track 2 promised passenger rail service here in Bennington to begin in 2020. The Track 2 promised service to Burlington just began, which is now 6 years late from when that was promised. As far as I know, nothing is in the works for the Bennington, Manchester, Rutland segment of the route. I'm quite sure if that promised service had been implemented, y'all would have a viable option for handling some of the disrupted traffic on Route 7 during the upcoming culvert and bridge replacements. Woe to Vermont for not having a rail alternative. Also, if the bridges had been reinforced for passenger service by now, you'd have an alternative for taking some of the highest density traffic, the stuff that's overweight and oversized, without taking it on Route 7 or 7A. So my question is, when are we going to get our train, and when do you plan to follow through with the promised passenger service? Are you looking at all to implement local passenger service during the Route 7 construction? If not, why not? My item 2, as you may or may not know, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation has recently released a final study draft report on restoring passenger rail service on the Northern Tier line. This is the old Boston and Maine line that comes out from North Station through Worcester, Greenfield, out through the Hoosick Tunnel to North Adams. That line continues west through Williamstown, cuts through the southwest corner of Vermont through Pownell, and goes west to New York State. It eventually reaches Amtrak Chicago-New York City line at Schenectady. Mass DOT is now accepting public comments on the final study draft until the 12th of October. Option 5 in the study proposes continuing service west of North Adams, Mass. to Rensselaer, New York for connections to New York City. As far as I'm aware, Vermont Agency of Transportation has not joined and is not a participant in the study. It is imperative that Vermont Agency of Transportation submit comments to Mass DOT and affirm support for option 5 and the establishment for a passenger stop in Pownell. If we put in a Pownell station that would serve all of Bennington County, it will provide 3.5 hours ridership to Boston and 4.5 hours to New York City with a connection in Rensselaer. Don't let Bennington County down again. Don't let us lose this golden opportunity to connect by rail to Boston and New York. It's time everyone got on board. Please submit comments and support us here by endorsing option 5 and passenger station in Pownell. You all want to fight climate change. You all want to have passenger train service, and you want to get cars off the road. So please, let's write Mass DOT and support this. Thank you.
Honestly, I don't have a response for your comments and questions tonight. I'll have to check in or coordinate with my rail and aviation section of the agency to understand where, these studies stand, whether service.
If you could pass those on to the proper folks in the
Absolutely.
rail division up north, I would be very much appreciative.
And if Elaine has your contact information, I'll definitely respond or reply with anything that I come across, so you have full circle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi there. It's a great presentation. Thank you very much. I'm from Sunderland, Dixie Zens. I'm on the select board up in Sunderland. My question was, did I understand you to say that full closure is only 2 weeks, 1 week for each?
That's correct. We were, after performing the traffic analysis and level of acceleration review, we're able to reduce the bridge closures from 14 days each to 7 days each with the traffic management that Tim had described during the presentation.
That's great. Thank you.
Woman in the back, sorry, she had her hand up. Go for it.
Eric?
Oh, you're fine.
Ron Jennings, live on 7A. Very, very concerned about the amount of traffic that's going to be coming by our house. Another point I'm concerned about, 2 years ago, the state went up through and shimmed the road. What's going to happen if we have all this more traffic on the road? It's no real base on the road right now. With all this extra traffic, what's that going to do to the highway? And is the state going to do something to repair it afterwards because all the extra traffic?
I would have to follow up on your question. I'm not aware of any FPAVE or pavement rehabilitation projects in the program right now, but I'm not part of that program. I will have to just look into where this section of roadway, the last time it was addressed, and the next time that they'll be in this area to
all this truck traffic is not going to help out the base that is no longer really there.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes. We'll get you after.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Sue Baludis, and I live on 7A, and I also have a business on 7A. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there has been numerous times that residents have tried to reduce the speed limit because there's already too many cars going way too fast. And here is a petition from 2018, this is the last one, of over 80 people to get the speed reduced in that area. It is also signed by several politicians in the area. You could keep those. I have, and here's another one. It is a serious issue, and I'm sure some of the people that live along there are well aware of it. And you don't live in the area, and you're not aware of it. But those are local residents, most of which are on 7A. And I'm not sure how you're going to address that to reduce the speed limit.
I'll have to get in touch with the traffic study folks. I understand there's studies that are required to formalize speed reductions on state and local highways.
I think
Have you, or has the community pursued that with the agency?
Yes, there's documentation right there.
Okay.
That is by a former resident on 7A. This is probably the third time this has gone through VTrans. And I'm saying the simplest thing to do is all the 50 posted signs, you could get coverings for them, change the sign for temporary, put it at 40. I'm not sure if you have a count of how many driveways are along there. Very
Yep,
simple.
we can, during the construction condition, it's certainly, speed limit certainly can be reduced with appropriate signing,
It would be an
and
easy
approach signing.
fix. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing this.
Yep, much appreciated. Sir?
Thank you for that presentation and for coming down. I'm Naomi Miller. I'm the chair of the Shaftsbury Select Board at the moment. And as I think we all take it for granted, but I'm just going to say it out loud, that we're very grateful that VTrans is taking care of the road. Right? We're glad that that's going to happen. But as I think you can hear, our serious concern is about pedestrian and vehicular traffic in the congested areas of our town. And I just want to urge you to look into every possible measure to reduce the number of days even further that you have to detour these vehicles. Because although we hope you will take all the advice that people are giving you tonight about how to increase the safety while you do the detour, there's really no way to compare, as your basic study did, I think, the metric of how much delay there is for vehicular traffic on 7, if you divert into one lane open at a time, versus how much delay there is for the living traffic generators in the town. And then how much danger there is for all the through traffic who are unfamiliar with the route and will be moving at high speeds and at a level of frustration with the whole detour that will make them unable to see clearly what's going on around them. What's going to be going on around them is a very active small town with a narrow street going through a long stretch of road where there are a lot of businesses that have a lot of cars going in and out of them. The chocolate barn that Subaludis runs is a very dangerous corner. But there are businesses all along that stretch that have, that have cars going in and out of them already at a rate that is dangerous when big trucks come through because they're not local. You know, if we increase that by over 8,000 vehicles a day, it's simply unimaginable, I think, to the people who really live and work in this town to imagine how it's going to be dealt with without there being loss of life in the course of it. So I'm not asking for a specific response. I just really hope you will take very seriously that this isn't about vehicular delays. This is about life-saving measures, and that's what we're really concerned
And we can, if you have areas of specific concern, such as areas of poor sight distance, we can look into that and, try to add additional measures or additional review in the traffic analysis to try to address some of the more sensitive areas if you have them identified already. That'd be really helpful for us.
Yes, sir.
Charlie Jenks. I live here in town. I'm nowhere near as elegant as my wife. Concerns about traffic coming off Myers Road onto 7A. That's bad enough now. You add a bunch more traffic to it, you're going to have a serious situation. And there's more than one culvert or two culverts bad. They were all put in the same time. They've all got to be bad. Exactly. What do you think of that?
For the other culverts up there, I can't speak specifically to the other culverts, but I would agree if they're the same vintage, they're probably similar. I know some of them have been, I think, replaced, but we would have to look into that to get you a little more information. Thoughts on that?
We try to. There's recent emphasis on trying to bundle like a certain number of projects of certain condition in an area to try to not have to come back to a certain area more than like every other year. Doing multiple bridges on a corridor, we try to incorporate those projects as they come up and are prioritized in our program. We have a very large number of culverts around the state, so it's difficult to program all the culverts to be replaced at one time.
I would like to say some more, and
sure.
I will speak loud enough so you can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I work for the town of White Creek, and you can put up all the signs you want to, and nobody pays attention to.
I fully agree with that.
So putting cops out there, unless they actually write tickets, is not going to amount to anything.
You put an in-working sign out, people pick up the speed. I'm sorry.
Well, look at the bridge.
Yeah.
How many times has that been hit and it's got flashing lights?
There is a balance of too many signs out there on people start, the travelers just don't see all the signs after a while.
They don't care to see them. It's a problem. They overlook them. And I don't like to be rude, but you can put as many signs out there as you want. If you don't read them, it doesn't do any good.
Right.
And
you also don't want to put too many out to be distracting, and we try to, we utilize the MUTCD for sign spacing and to put the correct number of signs out there a lot of times.
Put a trooper car out there and they're going to see it every day and they're going to slow down. They'll remember the trooper sign before they remember the sign.
Blue lights they are effective.
Yes.
You had a question? No, you said. Yep. Yep. We appreciate the patience.
My name is Art Whitman. I'm a resident of Shaftsbury. Would you please explain the temporary stoplights? Are they actually going to stop traffic? You said that there's going to be one at 7A and 67. You've got Paulins, you've got Dailies. You're actually going to stop traffic?
So for that 7-day closure period, we are, as a mitigation measure, looking to have traffic signals at those intersections, correct? They would be a temporary unit that would be timed to mitigate the traffic and reduce the delay and safety experienced if it was just no signals through there. So yes, it would be at 67A, it would be at 313 and 7A, or 67 and 7A, 313 and 7A, and at the ramps coming off exit 2.
I can just imagine a nightmare stopping traffic at Paulins with dailies, trucks, trying to get back onto the road and all that sort of stuff. You've got stone trucks hauling into dailies, 11 trucks trying to make 12 trips a day. There's no way that they can be held up and all that sort of stuff. I just see it going to be a nightmare for customers trying to get in and off the road at Paulins and back onto the road again. That type of thing, it just isn't going to work. There's a saying that the people that make this decision, have they ever spent any time in Shaftsbury? Have they spent a day in Shaftsbury to see what it's like when school's letting out or when work is, that sort of stuff? There's a saying that don't judge me until you walk a mile in my shoes. Please send somebody down here and spend a day in Shaftsbury and see all the congestion that there is in this town. If you thought that holding up traffic, alternating traffic was going to be too restrictive, why put 3 stoplights on 7A?
Thank you. Either one of you.
You want me to go first? Okay.
Martha Cornwell. I'm the vice chair of the Shaftsbury Select Board. I just want to echo some of the comments and that clarification on the, especially the 67 7A spot. There are multiple pinch points that happen here in Shaftsbury along that corridor as you kind of detour folks. One of them is at Hidden Valley Road and 7A. There are 3 large businesses that are at peak season, and I believe that you said this work was going to be done in July, August. That's the height of the season for both the Chocolate Barn ice cream, but also Clearbrook Farm, which is a major business for our town. Lots of cars going in and out, turning on. There have been here accidents. Sue and I have witnessed accidents and had to perform aid on people that have had car crashes right there. And so having that more traffic there and at the speeds going down that hill at 50 miles an hour. There is pinch points right at that Paulins area, especially in the morning time. There are major trucks that are coming out both from dailies, but also folks that are in the landscaping business, also peak season in July and August. July and August here in Bennington County is the horse show season, so we have many more folks coming from away, along with several other regional events. The horse show brings in folks from all over the country with horse trailers, trailering sometimes 10, 12 horses, and would have to be diverted on this road. And then also thinking about just in our downtown, we now have our country store back. The parking there is very difficult right on Buck Hill and 7A. And also during that time frame, we have children going to get free lunch programs. Many of them are walking. There is one sidewalk and also, I'm trying to think, the crosswalk there, and it has a flashing light. It's dangerous for children passing. They don't always have road crossing folks there, but they're going to get school lunch. So there's multiple pinch points that, and especially specifically in that July-August period that you probably have not taken into account because you, once again, haven't lived here. And so definitely something to think about as you're thinking about stopping the traffic and thinking about kind of the flow of both pedestrians, but also folks just participating in daily life.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, this is why we're here. I mean, we want to hear your input to help refine our plans, our approach, bring up potential issues for us to bring back and work through on the design side. I hear you on the regional events side of things. We're battling, with the regulators on the permitting side of things, that low flow period, which is traditionally July to August. We can push on that side as well with them, but certainly want to try and align best with community events. We'll be reaching out to you more directly to try and build out our list, but we want to hear from you on that standpoint and make sure we try to plan through anything we possibly can. We have the ability to direct the contractor when. They may be out there for a longer period on Route 7, but when that actual detour happens, we can direct that with them. So, getting that robust community events calendar, thinking through a lot of these aspects that you brought up is the best means to try and keep improving on what we've already presented here to you today. So thank you. Which one hasn't gone before? You in the back? We'll go, yeah. We'll get to you as well. And I'd just like to say, I think, what time are we at right now?
It's at 7:10, so we...
7:10, okay.
I'll make it quick.
No, you're no rush.
Unless you guys have invented some super duper culverts, I'm not real sure. These culverts are needing repair and they're 46 years old, but you're promising they're going to last 75. I'm wondering how you're doing that.
So the existing culverts are plate arch culverts that are galvanized culverts that our experience has been that the inverts or the bottom of the culverts rust out over time. By using concrete, you get that extended design life from a concrete structure. So these will actually be concrete with material placed in the bottom from an aquatic organism passage standpoint. But I do a lot of these in a number of different states, and moving to the concrete gets you that longer service life compared to some of these.
I didn't catch that the first time you said it.
It's older metal plate pipes that are all bolted together in multiple segments. It's not even just one round pipe. So imagine all these plates that have all these bolts all bolted together. So there's a lot of failure points over that time with that exposure to water and soil conditions. So the concrete is why the reason for the extended service life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll get the one in the back and then move up to you, gentlemen.
Hi, my name is John Brocky. I live on 7A, actually live across the street from Chocolate Barn. So a couple questions. One, you said 7 days and 7 days. Why can't the repairs run concurrently? But if you get a company.
Go ahead. So I may be stepping on Gary's toes a little bit. In the planning phase of the project, we try to reduce. We looked at the 14-day, we reduced to 7 days. When you start talking about concurrent projects like that, is it doable? Yeah, it may be doable. Does it require a more specialized contractor? Does it require incentives, disincentives, other contracting mechanisms? I'm not saying that we're going to necessarily go that route, but it's something that we can discuss a little bit more. But in terms of ensuring that we can have, the last thing we want to have happen is they get out there and it takes them more than 7 days, right? So
how often does that happen?
It's,
generally we put together a critical path method schedule to have a level of assurance and to have a level of confidence that they're able to perform in the duration that we're contracting. If we get into the shorter durations, essentially what that does is imposes more risk on a contractor, and then they turn around and they have to throw additional resources at it, and which drives cost.
Sure.
So more variables if we were bundled together. But
I got it. My next question, I guess the elephant in the room here, as everyone's kind of alluding to, is the biggest problem we're having is that we've already got a lot of heavy traffic on 7A, and we have a lot of traffic doing the speed limit plus, which is 50 miles an hour or 25. People are way over that, no matter where they are. This might be for you, Ms. LaRoche. I think that VTrans has to come up with a plan to sort of ameliorate that heavy traffic that's coming through the town of Shaftsbury just regularly, because it is a community, and we do have businesses here that utilize the road, but they're mainly utilizing 7A for their delivery of heavy traffic year round, and to the lady's point, July and August are usually when Daily has, whether it's cement trucks or a lot of the construction is done in the summer. So we're going to be adding on top of the heaviest time that we're seeing the heavy traffic, even more heavy traffic, which is going to be, challenging for the town, but, just, that's all.
Yeah, and generally communities like to have the projects constructed during the summer while school's out of session. If that's not as big of a deal for this community, then, it could be pushed a little bit later, in August, but, we want to be cautious of not making things even worse for the community. So, as we've been describing, we'll, after taking everybody's comments, concerns, and into factor, and the community calendar, getting the community calendar together, we can start looking at possible weeks, and the intent would be likely like a Monday, like starting at a Monday to a Sunday for the 7 days, and and it can't, of course can't promise anything for duration, but there's possibility of incentivizing the contractor to get it done a little bit quicker, a day or so quicker. A lot of times when you're the Accelerated Bridge Program, for the past decade, we've incentivized contractors to try to do it a couple days quicker, but it's always dependent on site conditions and all the factors at play. Go ahead.
How much time in between culverts? We're going to do 7 weeks, or 7 days, and then the next time, how far off is the second time?
It could be the 7 days, a week between, and then another 7 days. It could be that close, or we would have to put together our CPM schedule, or a critical path method schedule, to understand what prep work would be done, need to be done prior to closing the road on that second structure for at the conclusion of the first closure. So there's some variability there that we still have to sort out during the design process. Yes, sir.
David Durfee, I'm the state representative for Shaftsbury and for most of Sunderland as well. I want to, first of all, thank you for coming. I'll also add an acknowledgement that the project has evolved since we first had a chance to look at it, and to the extent that that's in response to anything you've heard from me or from the select board, we appreciate that and hope that what you're hearing tonight may also help the project to continue to evolve. I think Ron mentioned concerns about 7A just a mile or so north of here near North Road, where there's always been concern about that part of the road collapsing and an inability to get in there and fix it because the heavy equipment that it would take would further undermine conditions there. So just wanted to make sure that, to reinforce that point, that you were aware of that. I'm wondering if you can speak to the, and so thinking about the one-way closure, and just whether you can talk a little bit about what your studies show that would add to a trip between exit 2 and exit 3, or however you're measuring that. And if you're already planning to do that for part of the time, which is, I think, good news, how you looked at that in comparison to what the additional time would be by adding traffic lights, for example, and the extra traffic on the road.
So the big delay periods, so let me back up. So obviously the fastest means to replace these culverts is the closure. So if we went in any of the phasing methods, whether it was one lane alternating or whatever it may be up there on Route 7, it's going to take longer than it would for just the closure and the approximately 1 to 2 weeks of one lane alternating leading up to the closure. The delay that we saw on the AM and PM peak periods, so that 7 to 9 and that 3 to 5 PM, was what we would consider fairly significant in terms of level of service. It goes A to F. It was on that D range. And there are metrics in regards to a time of delay in those, but just to keep it simple, that's kind of where we're at with regards to that operation during the week. The weekend, we saw tremendous delay, level of service F or beyond, significant delay in that weekend, Saturday PM peak period, noontime, 1 o'clock period. We can share, we actually have uploaded to the project website our traffic report, which does speak to some of those specific delays and queue lengths up there, but we just felt that that was too significant to be feasible up there for the construction on Route 7.
Also to the earlier point that if you don't actually live here, you don't necessarily get all the nuances. And I'm thinking that if I were driving from Bennington to Manchester, say, to the village of Manchester or Manchester Center, I would probably take Route 7. It would be the fastest route. If I were sitting at the intersection of 313 and 7A where you're envisioning one of those traffic lights, so I've gotten off the highway, I've been detoured off, I get to that point, I'm probably not going to get back. I'm probably not going to turn right and get back on the highway. It's going to be faster for me to continue up 7A to get to the bookstore, for example, or to Arca Miles. So I'm wondering if that's part of your modeling, if you've looked at that, because there may be an impact on Arlington's traffic as well. And I understand that they haven't asked for a meeting and they may not be as concerned about it, but something also to point out there.
So we evaluated the turn movements at all of those intersections, not just the southerly turn movement from 313. We also evaluated that turn movement to the north. I think some of what you're talking about may be like local trip distribution, which kind of puts another angle into some of that traffic modeling. We do have some considerations in there, but I'd have to speak specifically with our traffic folks. But the determination of, where you all may go to avoid, I mean, probably none of you are going to be out on Route 7 if we had one lane alternate. You're all going to be using 7A anyways. So there is some trip distribution in there that is considered in that traffic modeling, and it's something we can take a closer look at.
Great. And then just one other quick point. And this is also really, well, it's an Arlington issue, but it's also a Shaftsbury issue. We're going to look for the shortest route, and many drivers also already are taking a shortcut on Warnbrook Road in Arlington. And I imagine that is going to be even more appealing and attractive to people who know that they can do that.
And River Road too. Put that one on there too,
Yeah,
the list,
yeah.
River Road, because that's the other route to go north and south, and is a road that will not accommodate any kind of large truck whatsoever. Or East Road, all of those roads are gonna be, north-south is going to have things on it that are not made to have any kind of large truck.
So just a question about that to wrap up, for me anyway. Do towns have any ability or power here to say to put up a sign, maybe it would be ignored, saying local traffic only, to discourage through traffic? And I'm thinking in Shaftsbury of East Road, cars coming off of the highway at exit 3, turning onto Warnbrook Road, and maybe their GPS is saying, you know what, it would be faster for you to turn left here and head up onto East Road, which is a rural dirt road with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit nominally. So do towns have that legal authority?
Yes, on a town road, yes. The towns have their own, they govern their own highways, so they can include additional signage that's, outside MUTCD and to what their wishes are, and if the road is posted for a certain weight limit or what have you.
When you're talking about the delays and you're saying A, B, C, D, F, we have no idea what that means. So when you're talking about a delay, are you talking about a half an hour delay of going north and south, or?
It's in terms of seconds delay. Yes.
So if you're going one way, it's only going to be a few seconds waiting to go to the, that's what I'm kind of curious
So the delay is going to be a situation that it does, I don't have it in front of me here, but the level of service A through F is I don't have the table right in front of me, but it's a delay of, we'll say, 0 to 10 seconds, 10 to 20, 20 and more. Okay, so here we go. So this is the level of service. When I'm talking about level of service, the average delay in seconds of a level service A is less than 10 seconds. B is between 10 and 20, 20 and 35 for C, D 35, 55, and then F is greater than 80 seconds of delay. So about a minute and a half of delay. I believe off the top of my head, I think we were about 600 seconds of delay on the peak period and the weekend time for one lane alternating on US 7, which equates to 10 minutes.
Okay. Oh, waiting in a line.
And waiting in a line, yeah.
Okay.
And the delay that you have is directly correlates to queue length, which is how far it stacks up. So we measure that in the means of seconds. Yes.
And how long is the strip that would be only one way? Like what's the length? And so if you're waiting for 10 minutes, I understand the backup of, the queue of how many people are waiting to go. But how long of a distance in feet, miles, I don't know, are you waiting to go in one direction or the other?
Well, it's the question of how long is the construction zone, I think is what you're saying. So we would stop the traffic on one side of the construction zone, alternating one way with a signalized light, basically. The construction zone in this nature is probably going to be, I will just throw out a round number and say 500 feet long.
Okay.
We would not do both culverts a half mile apart with one lane for over a half mile. It would be 300 to 500 feet. The construction length at each of these culverts is only about 300 to 400 feet to get down, excavate down to these deeper culverts. So 500 feet is probably a round number. Can we get this gentleman over here? He hasn't spoken yet.
Todd Lawrence, I'm on the Sunderland Select Board. I'm also on the Bennington County Regional Emergency Management Committee. I appreciate you coming out tonight and giving your presentation. I appreciate also everyone from Shaftsbury and other towns in the area coming out and asking questions. We have some time until this happens. I just want to make sure that the EMS, police, fire, all the rescue services are informed and kept up to date. Usually, I'm not a firefighter. I worked in airport management prior to this, so dealt with some of these closures on runways and stuff. But with the alternating closures, there's probably going to be a lot of coordination needed with the rescue services to make sure that time's not lost if they have to travel from north to south on 7 or 7A. So that's my one concern with that, is just make sure as we get closer to the project that the project team meets up with the regional or the emergency management or the rescue services to come up with what's going to work best for them and how they're going to be advised. Like, this is at this time, our closure is here, you're going to have to probably go this route or whatever route you want to take, but these are the alternating closures, so that way time's not lost if they have to go to Bennington or Manchester, stuff like that. The other thing in terms of the contracts, when it comes out for the project, are there going to be any penalties or incentives for the contractor in terms of time delays? Like if, project's scheduled to go for the end of this time, is there going to be any penalties like after this date, every day after you're late, we're going to take away a certain amount of money to your project? I don't want the project to be done quickly and cheaply in terms of, a rushed job, but at the same time, they'll have that same pressure, like we're not gonna mess around.
So for accelerated bridge projects, generally, there is an incentive-disincentive clause that's built into the contract for, the short durations, whether, we can incentivize like down to 5 days versus 7, or, depending if we determine if that's feasible with a CPM scheduled analysis, because we can't set up the contractor to fail, of course. So that's certainly, an option. General rule of thumb, in accordance with the Federal Highway technical advisories, you can incentivize up to 5% of the contract, but you have to justify it with the work zone or user cost, which is the detour route and how many folks are having to go that detour route. There's a lot of factors that's built into that computation, but that's kind of how we develop that number. And I didn't know if, Tim, you want to talk about the emergency services and preemption?
Yeah, so, a couple of things. I agree with you completely on the emergency services and communication. That'll occur obviously through design, then obviously transition into construction as well, where I'll make sure that the contractor's schedule, which oftentimes may be, a little bit, their means and methods may drive it in one way versus way we anticipate, so make sure to share that. We have looked into, and there are means for preemption for emergency services on the temporary signals as well. We're considering that. I know probably your vehicles in town don't have a lot of preemption for signals because you don't have a lot of signals, but as part of the design, we're going to look through that aspect as well and see if there's any avenue that we can incorporate that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In addition to Tim's comment or Tim's response, for bridge closure periods, we require a pre-closure meeting where all the stakeholders would be invited to that meeting, which include all the emergency services and town officials and so forth, to assure that there's a plan and everybody's on the same page.
When you were talking about it's going to be a 10-minute delay on 7 to do this bridge closure, have you determined what the delay is for our residents from Buck Hill to cross over, or from Church Street to cross over, or to get out of Hollins, or to get out of Daly's? Myers Road, yeah.
You're talking about the side streets on 7A?
The delays, because, now there's delays without having all these extra cars.
So I'd have to go back and huddle up with our traffic folks on that detail. I know that part of the traffic modeling and considerations assumes that certain gaps. Part of the advantage of the signals is not only to help traffic move safely and more efficiently than just who wants to stick their nose out there first. It also generates gaps in that traffic to assist some of that entry and exits away from that signal. But I'd have to double check with some of our traffic folks to see what the delay was reviewed. Some of that figures into the signal timing and the more final design of the signals, which we're working through it, with all of your input. So
also, I will agree with Art about 67 and having a light there. That is going to be a nightmare. And there will be more accidents, more major issues by doing that. And also, like I said, I've been around tractor trailers since I was 16 years old. 10 minutes of a delay on a major route is not a big deal. I have been all over this country in tractor trailers. 10 minutes is nothing. It'd be a lot safer and less headache for everybody to have people sitting for 10 minutes. And that's at the worst. So that is kind of silly to be having all this issue, spending all this money, take on all these risks with our children in this area for 10 minutes. I mean, you go to Manchester, you're gonna, before we had the roundabout, you sat there at Malfunction Junction for longer than 10 minutes. So honestly, this is kind of silly. You'd be better off having them sit there waiting 10 minutes. So is this set in stone that you're traveling down 7A, or is this the preliminary? Are you willing to look at having them wait 10 minutes? Or is that just us talking and you guys listening?
So maybe point of clarification, Tim, but the 10 minutes was if we allowed the one-way alternating during the weekend.
That's correct. The peak period on Route 7.
So it'd be even less during the week?
It would be less during the week, yes. So we have analyzed this, but it would still perform at a level of service F. And again, there's a lot of things, moving pieces here. So as Gary mentioned, we may be able to incentivize the contractor to be to a 5-day period. What that does on the detour aspect of things, when you're talking about 67A, that figures into the design, and the peak delay there is occurring on the weekend. If we avoid the weekend, that changes the way that signal timing would be at 67A, or the need for signal during the week. With regards to on Route 7, I think as the project evolves, I think we'll, we're looking at all of these inputs to refine our design.
So it's still an option, you're saying? Because that sentence sounds like
well, our
that's not an
preferred,
option.
we evaluated a number of options. Right now, our preferred option is the detour. So we are
What
here.
about our preferred option? as
Understood.
residents?
Understood. I'm saying we're not going to not take your input and consider it, which we will definitely do, and evaluate that as we look at the overall package. But right now, our current preferred option is the detour.
Well, speaking for people that have dealt with tractor trailers, 10 minutes is not a big deal, and that's at the most. It would be greatly appreciated by the residents, my opinion, that you just do that instead of disrupting this whole community all the way. You're going to have more people hitting that bridge. I don't care what signage you put up. Unless you have troopers everywhere, it's going to be ridiculous. Thank you.
Nope, understood. Thank you. We'll go with you. Yes, sir.
I'll be brief. I just wanted to revisit something Charlie had pointed out earlier. And you may have answered this, Gary, but you referred to the bundling of projects or needs, so these two culverts. Charlie had indicated that there are more culverts along this stretch of road. Is there reports on these other culverts in terms of their condition, given construction at approximately the same time?
So every structure that's over 6 feet in span has a bridge inspection report associated with it. So which would apologies, which is all publicly accessible. So you could look at the condition of all of those larger structures all along the corridor if you chose. As far as I know, there aren't any others on this stretch of US 7 in the program right now. But asset management, they prioritize I can't speak to how they prioritize our projects, but metrics are one of them's condition, and when you if you have towns advocating for certain structures be addressed through regional planning commissions and through those modes, it can bring the prioritization of structures a little higher on the list. But the condition of the structures can be, or is all publicly available information.
Does the town of Shaftsbury have that information?
It's on the VTrans webpage. Sir?
Working for the highway department, we can put a culvert in. Obviously, we don't have 13 foot of coverage on it. But we can put a culvert in on a dirt road that's 30 feet wide and keep one lane open. You've got 120 feet there at least. Why can't you keep one lane open with a red light, a stop and go light on that, so we don't have to go through all of this? Yes, it's going to be longer. I understand it's going to take longer and more money because you got to sheet it because it is 13 feet deep. But it's going to be safer in the long run.
Understood.
Just because something costs more to do in the end doesn't mean it's the safest thing to do.
A child's life is worth a lot more.
Whatever, might have that reversed. I don't speak very eloquently.
We understand what you're saying.
But yes,
understood.
It would be better if it spent more money or it took more time to do than to endanger somebody.
Understood.
And
Thank
it's
you.
all the towns, not just Shasbury.
Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like a lot of people are coming up with solutions. When you looked at those numbers, we might have been in that queue waiting. But I think if I'm going to go to Arlington, I'm going to use Route 7. But if I know there's traffic going on up there, I'm going to use 7A. Or I'm going to use East Road. So everybody here, and if everyone in town knows, and all the locals and Arlington people going down to Bennington, they probably won't use the 7. It's going to be the out-of-staters that are using the 7, so it won't be a 10-minute wait like you're saying. So I think if you let some of us make the choices what road we're going to use, I think in the long run, people are going to be happy. Might cost a little bit of money, but then again, it might not.
Thank you.
I really don't want to sound like a snob, but I'm gonna. When you get New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York City, now I'm going to exclude New York. That's all right, but let me finish. You've been here long enough to tame down. They do not travel like the rest of us around here do. They travel a little different. I feel like an old man. I'm doing 55, 60 miles an hour on the road, and people go by me like I'm tied to a tree.
Oh, I can't disagree. The problem's everywhere.
Exactly. So you take those people that are used to that road, leave them up there where they can be stopped for 10 minutes and catch your breath. Leave us alone down here.
You had one more, and I apologize to say we have the building until 8, so
Getting back to 7A, this is more for the Arlington people to address. There's a climbing lane on 7A. I guess we all know what that nickname is, and you could all recite it.
Death Valley.
It's Death Valley, and I'm not sure if you know that from a VTrans standpoint.
I'm not aware of that.
We all know it. It's a climbing lane. People just gun it. It's a very short climbing lane. You lose the lane coming around an embankment. There's 2 roads. Yep, off of that. And on a good day, it's dangerous.
Yep.
You may want to drive it or just sit there one day and watch it.
Okay.
well, we thank you all very much. Your input is, if you can go ahead, but your input is extremely helpful to the overall design process. So if you'd like to step up and add another comment to it, happy to have that. But thank you all for taking the time to come out and share your input.
Oliver Duran, and I'm a town resident. A couple things that I'd like to bring up. One of them, can you treat these 2 jobs as separate jobs? Can you give it out to where you're running 1 week off, 1 week of downtime, got two different contractors working two different, can you supervise that work? I mean, I realize everything's got to be inspected as it goes in, but is that a feasibility to have two different contracts out, two different contractors with simultaneous completion of the road closure? Is that a possibility? And I appreciate you guys coming down here and at least listening to us.
Absolutely. So for response to your question, generally it's more efficient to have a single contractor who has subcontractors is performing the work under that singular contract, so they can efficiently move operations from one bridge to the other. So while they're working, doing guardrail on one, they can do turf establishment on the other, for an example, or excavation on one and setting up, the pumps to pump the river, or diversions. They could be working on other operations. So they kind of they complement each other when you have a single contractor on board that can control that other operation.
So you're not saying it can't be two contractors as subs under one contractor.
Right.
Well, my thought was that two contractors on the same job, they someone in competition with each other, looking for bonus money for early completion, maybe sharing experience, you'd have to share inspectors. I just wondered if it's feasible to do it that way. And I guess just put it out there as an alternative.
And we appreciate that.
And minimize the extra tax.
Well, thank you all. And as we mentioned earlier, the QR codes out back or in our presentation here, there are links to our project webpage, which includes all of our information as we update it. We will be coming back as we move into final design to discuss further. Right now, we're anticipating fall of 2025, but as we work through our schedule, we'll continue to refine that and keep communication with you all. And if you haven't, please make sure you sign up on the sign-up sheet. We'll share any of our information, as well as don't hesitate to reach out to Elaine for any and all events that you may have knowing or coming up. We'll be doing some other reach outs to you as well, but all that stuff is important for us, and want to make sure that we, regardless of what that, the mitigations and everything we're talking about with the detour, we want to make sure that we at least have the community calendar correct and we have all of those items thought through. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.